It is my great pleasure to introduce Professor Tomomi Yamaguchi and to welcome her back to Ann Arbor. Professor Yamaguchi earned her PhD in anthropology here in 2004, and the city has changed a lot since then, and so has her career. In 2007, she joined the Anthropology Sociology Department at Montana State University in scenic Bozeman, where it's warmer than it is now in Ann Arbor. She earned tenure there in August 2013, and I still congratulate her for that. Wonderful achievement. In the intervening 3 years between her PhD and joining Montana State University, Professor Yamaguchi was a postdoc scholar at the Center for East Asian Studies, the University of Chicago. And it was at Chicago where she began to conduct ethnographic fieldwork on both supporters and opponents of nuclear energy. And she did this in addition to organizing many international symposia and delivering many invited lectures on the subject. Professor Yamaguchi's first extensive research in the late 1990s, and this was for her doctoral dissertation, involved over 2 years of intensive fieldwork in Japan, primarily Tokyo, on self-identified feminist groups, focusing on their organizational strategies and media use, in addition to their strategic responses to mostly negative representations of feminism in the mainstream Japanese mass media. An analysis of the founding activities and eventual breakup of one group in particular, the Kodo Surukai, or Women's Action Group, formed the nexus of her dissertation and a new book that is in progress. Now, interestingly, the dominant faction of the former group later recruited Professor Yamaguchi to coordinate the writing of their book on their terms, on their history. And this book, titled The Road Cultivated by the Women of Action, From Mexico to New York, was published while Professor Yamaguchi was still a graduate student in 1999. Her second book, Social Movements at a Crossroads, Feminism's Lost Years versus Grassroots Conservatism, and I should mention that both books are in Japanese, was published in 2012. Now, both of these books contribute a great deal to our knowledge of Japanese feminism and augment the still rather sparse literature in English, or Japanese for that matter, on post-war and especially 21st century feminist activities in Japan. In addition, I should mention that Professor Yamaguchi has published many book chapters and many articles in refereed journals, and is active on the conference and lecture circuit. And I'm holding her CV here, but I'm not going to go through all of her amazing accomplishments. You can access those on her website. Professor Yamaguchi is also famous in Japan for her highly respected and widely accessed websites in Japanese and in English on subjects from theories of feminism to citizens' movements. And she has been particularly active in critiquing the right-wing backlash against both Japanese feminism and efforts by nationalist and ethnocentric conservatives to revise wartime history. And her talk for us today, The History Wars and the Comfort Women Issue, Revisionism and the Right Wing in Contemporary Japan, is part of this ongoing critique. In my view, Professor Yamaguchi's scholarship represents the best of what we might call engaged or activist anthropology. And we're very fortunate that she's able to come here and share her experience and her scholarship with us today. So join me in welcoming Professor Tomomi Yamaguchi.
Well, thank you so much for coming today, and then for Professor Robertson to introduce me. It's a great honor to get introduced by my former advisor when I was a graduate student. So today I will discuss, as the title says, the history wars and the comfort women issue and revisionism and the right-wing material, because I have been doing some field research on revisionist right-wingers in Japan. So that's gonna be the theme. And then there's actually two handouts. So if you don't have them, and then they're could be some or maybe not. But there, one is the timeline one, and the other one is the, actually this is by an organization called FEND, Comfort Women Denier Talking Points Debunked document. I will use timeline. Well, maybe timeline will give you some background to what I discussed today, and then the Kono statement, and then the other announcement by Korean and Japanese foreign ministers toward the end. So, an issue of intense controversy in the past few years in Japan is the comfort women. Women from Asia and Pacific who were forced into sexual servitude for Japan's imperial troops during World War II. Many in the right wing have relentlessly attacked this accepted historical narrative and deny that there was any government involvement in or corresponding responsibility for a system of sexual slavery. In April 2014, Japan's most conservative national paper, Sankei Shimbun, started running a series entitled History Wars, Rekishisen, focusing on Japan's disagreements with South Korea and China concerning historical events pertaining to Japan's colonial history. The series began with the comfort women issue. Other right-wing media and intellectuals quickly adopted their Sankei's terminology for such disagreements as history wars. Early backlash against the comfort women issue began when South Korean Kim Hak-sun came forward as a former comfort woman in 1991. On August 4th, 1993, the Chief Cabinet Secretary Kono Yohei issued a statement which is included in a handout. Right-wing forces argue to this day that Kono's statement's indication that the comfort women were forcibly taken away by the Japanese military is the root of the comfort women problem. By 1997, information about comfort women had been added to all junior high school history textbooks, which triggered a sense of urgency and anxiety among right-wing Japanese right-leaning citizens. And revisionists argued that Japanese history education was masochistic and self-blaming. The current Prime Minister Abe Shinzo was in his early stage of political career then and took part in the movement. Right-wingers protested against the International Women's War Crimes Tribunal in 2000, and it was reported that the politicians, including a young Abe Shinzo, pressured the NHK to change the content of the documentary of the tribunal. The ultra-conservative Abe Shinzo became prime minister in 2006, and in March 2007, he made a statement denying the forcible nature of comfort women's system, which angered the international community, especially the United States, which later passed House Resolution 121, asking the Japanese government for a formal apology for the engagement of the comfort women system. This quick review of the past history of comfort women revisionism makes clear that how the current Prime Minister, Abe Shinzo, supported by ultra-conservative organizations and their leaders, has been deeply involved in the comfort women issue. Today, I'd like to mostly focus on a recent development, namely, what has happened since 2012, when attacks against the comfort women issue intensified after Liberal Democratic Party, LDP, regained power, and Abe Shinzo becoming prime minister once again in December of that year. Empowered by ultra-conservative government, the right wing loudly disseminated a revisionist history, according to which the concept of comfort women is a fabrication created by China and South Korea to inflame diplomatic tensions. The issue is simply a political one between Japan and South Korea, despite the fact that victims exist all over Asia, and the issue has existed independently of the human rights of women. Based on extensive fieldwork with right-wing individuals and organizations, especially during my sabbatical for the last academic year, I will review this ongoing controversy and discuss how this issue functions and functions as an important rallying point to tie together disparate right-wing elements in the Abe government. I will also address how significant the role of women is in the recent movement against comfort women. And then the Japanese revisionists claim that the United States is the major battlefield of the comfort women issue. Finally, the recent diplomatic agreement between South Korea and Japan and subsequent divided reactions from the Japanese right will be introduced. I intend to demonstrate how historical revisionism has been a key component in the prominent ideologies of racism, sexism, and ultranationalism currently at work in Japan. So I will now explain who are those revisionists first. Since the mid-1990s, attacks on the comfort women issue became much more intense with the emergence of a new revisionist history textbook movement. The establishment of 新しい歴史教科書を作る会 or the Society for History Textbook Reform, hereafter referred to as 作る会, in 1996 was especially significant as 作る会 effectively widened the range of people, including ordinary citizens in the words of Oguma Eiji and Ueno Yoko in 2003 book. Or newcomers, which is the word used by a right-wing informant of mine, who came to be involved in the movement at that time. And then politicians also participated in the revisionist history movement as well, with the founding of a group of young LDP politicians, the Young Diet Members Group for Japan's Future and History Education. The current Prime Minister Abe Shinzo was the group's secretary. In 1997, Nippon Kaigi, or Japan Conference, Japan's largest conservative alliance organization, was founded. Nippon Kaigi is basically an umbrella organization of traditionally conservative groups, such as the Association of War-Bereaved Families and the Religious Right, including the Association of Shinto Shrines or Jinja Honcho, and many other conservative new religions and moral education groups. For Nippon Kaigi, the interpretation of Japan's colonial history cannot be separated from discussions of constitutional revision, which is the organization's ultimate goal. These organizations, along with the conservative media and intellectuals, have been spreading the revisionist claims and then engaging in activism as well. The basic line of revisionist argument was prepared primarily in the 1990s and shared via conservative media and conservative organizations' publications. They denied the involvement of the Japanese military and the forcible recruitment of comfort women, and thus claimed to abolish the Kono statement. They also reject the characterization of the comfort station system as that of military sexual slavery, as indicated in the Kumaraswamy report of 1996 by the UN Commission on Human Rights Special Rapporteur on Violence Against Women. Moreover, the liberal media, especially the Asahi Shimbun, was called out as a fabricator of the comfort woman issue. In particular, then Asahi reporter Uemura Takashi, who is this guy, who was the first to cover Kim Hak-sun's story, was accused of being the reporter who fabricated the issue. The number of Korean comfort women recruited for the Japanese military was disputed as being too many, though the number would not change the nature and the existence of sexual slavery. Furthermore, the comfort women issue itself came to be targeted as constituting only of false accusations and fabrications, and the testimonies of the comfort women were characterized as untrustworthy. Around the time when the first Abe administration was established in 2006, a new ultranationalist xenophobic movement, the Action Conservative Movement, Koudou Suru Hoshu Undo, or ACM I will call them, emerged. So this slide basically won the group that seeks recovery of sovereignty. That was the first group established in 2006, and then Zaitokkai was established in 2007. You can see in this photo that there's two guys taking video images and the computer kind of streaming of these actions, and which is really the key to this activism. So in July 2006, activist Nishimura Shuhei founded Shuken Kaifuku Mezasu, the group that seeks recovery of sovereignty, hereafter Shuken, which created a style of activism that was adopted by later ACM groups. And its leader, Nishimura, told me in my interview with him that he considered the comfort women issue the most important in his activism. Another influential ACM group, Zaitokukai, 在日特権を許さない市民の会, or Citizens Refusing to Tolerate Special Rights for Koreans in Japan, was established in January 2007, led by Sakurai Makoto, a temporary municipal government worker at that time. Zaitokai has dealt with various current issues and that have caught the society's attention, and the comfort woman issue has always been the group's radar. Shuken Zaitokai and other ACM groups and individuals really engaged in various joint actions on the comfort women issue. The movement's core style became that of breaking taboos and using hate speech in their demonstration, and then broadcasting these actions on the internet. They attracted many younger people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s, contrast to mainstream conservative groups, whose members were mostly over 60 years old. The ACM groups hold various demonstrations on the issue and made it a particular point to stage counteractions against events run by the supporters of comfort women. One example is this Zaitokai demonstration against a gathering held by feminist group on the comfort women issue in Osaka. And the other example, again, from 2013, this is the right-wing protest against a rally held by a feminist organization in support of comfort women. And this sign here, for example, said, Korean prostitutes don't lie, something like that. In 2010, another group, Ganbare Nippon Zenkoku Koudou Iinkai, or Cheer Up Japan, the National Action Committee, was formed based on the committed viewers group of Channel Sakura, which broadcasts right-wing news and talk shows via satellite and online channels. So this is Channel Sakura. Built with the support of mainstream conservatives, Channel Sakura and Ganbare Nippon, led by former TV producer Mizushima Satoru, appealed to new participants from older generation across Japan, with its less extreme approach than the other ACM groups. These new groups' claims on the comfort woman issue are not fundamentally different from existing revisionist arguments by mainstream conservatives. What the ACM did in their on-street demonstrations and online broadcasts of their actions was to make their attacks against former comfort women blatantly racist and sexist, by calling them such as mere prostitutes, liars, greedy Koreans, and so forth. Moreover, already existing critiques against the liberal media, especially against Asahi Shimbun, among the conservatives came to be combined with the ACM's criticisms against the mass media. In particular, the version of the story of the beginning of the comfort women controversy, that it was Asahi Shimbun that originally fabricated the issue. Particularly its reporter, Uemura Takashi, was surprisingly widespread at ACM rallies even before the extensive backlash against Asahi in 2014. These protest actions were broadcast on the internet, especially via Channel Sakura and video sharing sites such as Nico Nico Douga or Nico Nico Video or Nico Nico Live Broadcast, which spread their claims to a much wider audience, making the revisionist history into a shared story among many viewers in front of the computer screen. So now I'll move on to the issue of focus on women. Additionally, what is notable with the ACM's activism is the significant presence of women as movement leaders. The ACM uses women strategically in the comfort women issue by characterizing it as an issue that conservative women should deal with. Conservative women, in fact, have by and large not been visible in leadership roles of movements concerning the interpretation of Japan's colonial history, including the comfort woman issue, though there are some exceptions, such as scholars Hasegawa Michiko or journalist Sakurai Yoshiko, those people. On the other hand, in the leftist movement, it had been primarily women, feminists in particular, who were engaged in activism on comfort women. In this context, it was the ACM's strategic choice to have women on the front stage of the movement, especially on the comfort women issue. The role of Yamamoto Yumiko, a middle-aged woman who is a former vice president and secretary of Zaitokukai, the anti-Korean group, and currently the leader of a women's group, Nadeshiko Action, has been especially significant in this regard. Yamamoto writes in her book, The Pride That a Woman Keeps of Japan, or 女性が守る日本の誇り, that, quote, due to the special nature of the comfort woman issue, it is an issue that women should deal with, unquote. Yamamoto explains further during my interview with her, quote, I thought that it's better to make it an issue of women versus women, instead of having conservative men to work on the issue, unquote. In 2011, Yamamoto established Nadeshiko Action, which is an organization exclusively devoted to comfort women issue. The term Nadeshiko refers to a pink flower, similar to a carnation, that is used as a metaphor of traditional Japanese femininity. Despite having a group name laden with the connotation of traditional Japan, the official English name of Nadeshiko Action is not a literal translation, but instead, Japanese Women for Justice and Peace. A title that sounds quite typical for a liberal organization working on human rights, with terms such as justice and peace included. In other words, the official English name is confusing, as it does not indicate anything about the group being right-wing. Yamamoto told me by focusing on this issue, on one issue of comfort women, she could have balance between her own ordinary life and the activism that she does voluntarily. And the comfort woman issue is the one she wanted to work on, because she's a woman. The first major action of the group was a counteraction on December 14, 2011, against the feminist action in front of the Diet in Tokyo that was commemorating the 1000th anniversary of the weekly Wednesday demonstrations demanding Japan's redress the comfort women problems in Seoul that began around Kim Hak-sun went public with her status as a former comfort woman. The 1000th anniversary was also when the statue of a girl or comfort woman was built in front of a Japanese embassy in Seoul. Nadeshiko Action and many other groups, mostly affiliated with the ACM, but also including Tsukurukai and individuals associated with Nippon Kaigi, held the event. Yamamoto recalled the occasion later, quote, I had no idea how many people would show up, but so many people came. So I became really confident that there were many women on our side, unquote. While Yamamoto stresses that the comfort woman issue is what conservative women should work on because they are women, what is contradictory and ironic is that she and other conservative women also deny that the comfort woman issue is at its core a women's issue. For example, Yamamoto told me, and the comfort women issue is characterized as an issue of women's human rights, but I don't think it's an issue of women's human rights. For her, it is an issue of anti-Japan activity by other Asian countries, especially South and North Korea, as well as Japanese leftists who tend to be referred to as professional citizens or pro-shimin, as opposed to themselves as ordinary citizens or ordinary women or ordinary housewives. The activists thus promote the one version of the story that negates the aspect of comfort woman issue that relates to Japan's women, that relates to women's human rights. And the ACM has played a significant role in spreading their version of the story widely to the public. Moreover, as sociologist Higuchi Naoto argues, while the conservative media lays the groundwork for the ACM discourse, the ACM's discourse also provided material to be used by the conservative media. There is a significant danger that the ACM version of the story, with its simplicity, could easily become the shared, newly constructed memory of World War II. So on the history wars. As soon as Abe Shinzo became the prime minister again in December 2012, the debate on the comfort women issue intensified once again. The revisionist movement started activities in the political arena, and especially in local communities, such as submitting petitions in prefectures and cities. Various right-wing organizations and individuals, from the mainstream Nippon Kaigi to Tsukurukai to the ACM, worked collaboratively, utilizing activism strategies that were previously employed by leftists and feminists. For example, activists initiated a new grassroots movement in imitation of leftist activities. Revisionist panel exhibitions on comfort women held in various cities across Japan since around 2012. So this is one example of the poster for the revisionist panel exhibition. And then you see the backside of the poster is a manga to appeal to the wider people. The other sample posters here, and all of them really saying that we are going to modify the existing history of comfort women. We are going to really disclose the lies from the comfort women, etc. Originally, it was a left-wing strategy to host comfort women panel exhibitions to educate the general public. Local groups borrowed panels from organizations such as the Women's Active Museum of War and Peace of Tokyo and hosted exhibitions in local communities. The far right took the tactic and utilized it to host panel exhibitions of revisionist history, denying the comfort women issue. New groups that produced exhibition panels and arranged to host such exhibitions were also born. They lent the panels to local groups that expressed an interest in hosting an exhibition. My observation at some exhibitions and the advertisements of the exhibitions held in various locations both indicate that the ACM and other conservative groups, such as Tsukurukai and Nippon Kaigi, were collaboratively hosting such exhibitions. With these developments, numerous new groups working on the comfort women issue emerged. To connect these groups, a coalition group called Ianfu no Shinjitsu Kokumin Undo, or the Truth About Comfort Women National Movement, was founded in 2013. The organization includes a wide variety of groups, and the main office of the organization is located in Tsukurukai. Tsukurukai, whose original motivation was to fight against the inclusion of comfort women in the school textbooks, now works closely with various ACM groups based on activism against comfort women. In August 2014, the second largest newspaper in Japan, the Asahi Shimbun, released the results of the re-examination of decades-old coverage on comfort women. The paper announced that its careful re-examination revealed that some articles contained errors, or they then retracted, while many other articles had withstood the re-examination and contained no errors. Since the statement, though, right-wing attacks against Asahi Shimbun, former comfort women, and activist scholars and journalists working on this issue have really become unrelentingly. What? Is it here? Okay. Okay. Numerous criticisms against the Asahi and the comfort women issue have appeared in the mass media and on the internet, and also have been seen in various right-wing organizations' rallies, statements, and actions. One example, a rally by Ganbare Nippon, weekly kind of thing in front of the Asahi Shimbun's headquarters. And these signs basically says like all the Asahi has been saying is all the lies and they are against Japan's national interests. This is the flyer distributed by Ganbare Nippon at the rally, and basically Comfort Woman issue is the fabrication by Asahi, and in addition Nankin Massacre is also a fabrication by Asahi, and the Yasukuni Shrine issue is also fabrication by Asahi. So everything is basically fabrication by Asahi. And then the other demonstration in front of the Asahi headquarters, by another ACM group, New Social Movement. But this guy in a yellowish T-shirt is from Ganbare Nippon, or maybe probably joined Ganbare Nippon as well, because this is the T-shirt which says Comfort Woman issue is a fabrication by Asahi Shimbun, created by Ganbare Nippon. And May 3rd is a very important day for Asahi Shimbun, actually, because it was the day that right-wing terrorists went into the headquarters and murdered some of the, actually one reporter was killed and the other was heavily injured many years ago. So it was kind of the memorial day for the Asahi, and they staged this particular demonstration on the day specifically. And then the other one is for the journalist Uemura Takashi, who broke the story of Kim Hak-sun for the Asahi. And he has been receiving all the blackmails from unknown people. And then basically he was called as traitor. You should get out of Japan. And then also his daughter was really under intense attack by various unknown people. As a traitor, a daughter of a traitor or something like that. So moreover, Japan's ruling party, LDP, and his politicians have openly criticized Asahi for its errors and said its failure to truly acknowledge them was ruining Japan's international reputation. The history wars proposed by Asahi spread widely. Not proposed by Sankei spread widely, and the use of the war metaphor is closely connected to the revisionist history, according to which the Comfort Woman issue is a fabrication created by China and South Korea to create a one-sidedly unfair evaluation of Japan in the international community, and it has no connection to the human rights of women. Currently, there are 3 collective ongoing lawsuits by right-wing organizations against the Asahi Shimbun. Thank you. Okay, where else? Okay, here. So collective lawsuits. So currently there are 3 collective lawsuits, ongoing lawsuits by right-wing organization against the Asahi Shimbun. So this is one by Ganbare Nippon, and one of which supported by Ganbare Nippon, Tsukurukai, and the ACM and others, has more than 25,000 plaintiffs, and the other of which is actively supported by Nippon Kaigi. 2,000 plaintiffs, including residents living in the United States. This one, press conference. This guy with the red ties is the plaintiff, and the other ones are lawyers on this one. So this one is supported by Nippon Kaigi. While each lawsuit differs in its claims, all of them address and emphasize the damage to Japan's reputation in the international community and the Japanese people's extensive suffering in the United States due to the Asahi Shimbun's coverage, or rather, fabrication of the Comfort Woman issue. So next one is the United States as a major battlefield theme. With their heavy interest in the international reputation of Japan, the right-wing then started to call the main battlefield of the issue of the the main battlefield of the issue the United States. Through the participation in the history wars in Japan, are Japan, South Korea, and China, and also for some reason Asahi Shimbun as well for these people. The building of a Comfort Women Memorial in front of a library in Palisades Park, New Jersey in 2010 sparked a controversy. In 2012, journalist Okamoto Akiko, affiliated with Nippon Kaigi then, published an article in a conservative Seidon magazine on Palisades Park Memorial, claiming that Japanese children in the United States are bullied because of the memorial. Nadeshiko Action then spearheaded the movement to fight resolutions, museum exhibitions, and the building of a memorial related to comfort women. So this is the statue. One is in Glendale, California. And then subsequently, statues were built in Southfield, Michigan, and Glendale, California. And the Southfield one is there. Resulting in mass protest emails being sent from Japanese to Glendale City Council members. And I'm sure that some in Southfield or probably received something, and claiming such statues have caused bad Japan bashing and bullying incidents against Japanese children by Koreans and Americans in the United States, yet without any concrete evidence. So this is the document prepared by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for the LDP meeting. Basically, this document says that where the controversies exist on the comfort women statues and ads and resolutions and then memorials. So this is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs document. Then in the one of the protest actions, and actually they are from different actions, but one guy holds this Kumaraswamy report mention and then blaming the Asahi in English is important for him because he wants to appeal to the Americans and others in foreign countries. And then the other one, the next one here, this one here, actually says that many Japanese kids are bullied elsewhere in the United States, especially because of the Asahi's fabrication. So the story spread further via media coverage, including like right-wing manga like this, manga hate Korean wave. So this girl is crying here because of this statue, and people just blame her, bully her with this statue. The other manga, Hinomaru Gaisen Otome manga, Rising Sun Flag Rally Girl, and then also with this statue built, and this is supposedly Glendale, California, and these Americans and possibly Koreans as well, but Americans really bully Japanese people, and then this happens. Nobody has heard this kind of incident actually happen. And there's no really concrete report of anything of this sort. Even though, well, we can't probably say that bullying never happens, but at least we don't have any police reports, any reports to the local educational councils, and etc., etc. So the right-wing activists in both in Japan and California then filed a lawsuit against the city of Glendale. The plaintiffs, along with the Japanese right, established a new organization, the Global Alliance for Historical Truth, GATT, and then Sankei Shimbun has been actively supporting GATT by sponsoring rallies and helping the fundraising. Despite this, GATT has been losing their cases in both state and federal courts. In September 2015, the city of San Francisco unanimously voted to build the Comfort Women Memorial, becoming the first major city to build a memorial. It also faced extensive opposition from the Japanese right, as well as some Japanese American community members reportedly under pressure from the Japanese consulate. For the revisionists, a lack of publication with their spin on the comfort women issue in English is considered to be a major weakness of their activism. They spread information mostly in Japanese on websites and its publications, but very few exist in English. In particular, while quite a few academic books and articles have been published on the topic, there are no academic papers and books that reflect their views. Probably because their revisionist version of history is probably not accepted in the US academia. Trying to change this situation, they have enlisted American white men to play the role of spokespersons for the Japanese revisionist cause, like these people. For example, lawyer and TV talent Kent Gilbert, originally a Mormon missionary from Utah and a California lawyer, became one. As former Green Beret Michael Young, this guy here, and then a blogger and writer is the Michael Young, basically, and Tony Marano, as also known as Texas Daddy in Japan, a retired man living in Texas. He's not from Texas, but he lives in Texas, who is a star among the Japanese right, although little known within the United States. But his article was recently published by Reuters and was in New York Times, so some of you may have read article on him. A weird kind of phenomenon. Moreover, I'm sure it's not just only me, but others in this room probably must have been bombarded with Japanese revisionist emails or books and documents in English sent from Japan or elsewhere, and so there are some pamphlets in English. We have been receiving them because we are academics based in the major battlefield. They are target to convert. While most of the materials are coming from conservative individuals and organizations in Japan, in October last year, I received 2 revisionist books from an LDP politician, Inoguchi Kuniko. The upper house representative Inoguchi Kuniko sent revisionist books to scholars based in the United States, Australia, and probably elsewhere, and foreign journalists based in Japan. One is Osonfa's this Getting Over It book, and the other is Sankei Shimbun's History Wars, Japan False Indictment of the Century. Now, even a national politician from a ruling party known to have a rather liberal perspective for an LDP representative is involved in the history wars as a part of the LDP team effort, as Inoguchi told me on the phone conversation with her, that I called her office and she answered the phone. And so on a phone conversation with me last year. The United Nations is another target, as the right-wingers consider it to be dominated by leftist lobbyists and NGOs. The Truth About Comfort Women National Movement sent a delegation to Geneva for Human Rights Committee meetings in 2014 and 15, composed of members of Nippon Kaigi Tsukuru Kai, ACM groups such as Nadeshiko Action, and also individuals connected to a new religion, Happy Science. So this is a little photo, Geneva. And then this is another kind of gathering poster held in New York City after the UN meeting in New York. These coalitions demonstrate that the ACM, especially group working on the comfort woman issue, now work together with various conservative groups, from the mainstream Nippon Kaigi to Tsukuru Kai to a new religion, Happy Science. With the Asahi bashing, conservatives thought they had won the comfort woman issue in Japan, at least until the end of 2015. This is one of the reasons why the major battlefield was moved to the United States and the United Nations. Currently, the Japanese revisionist major target is the history curriculum in the state of California. They are asking the state not to include the curriculum anything about comfort women. So quickly about the diplomatic agreement and this right-wing reaction to the agreement between Korea and Japan. In December 28th of 2015, the foreign ministers of South Korea and Japan suddenly reached a diplomatic agreement on the comfort women issue. And handout has the agreement, actual agreement there. The Japanese government admitted an involvement of the Japanese military authority at that time, and I underlined that part in the handout. But actually, what kind of involvement remains unclear in this document. And promised to pay 1 billion yen to establish the foundation. The agreement also states that, quote, the issue is resolved finally and irreversibly with this announcement, unquote, and with both countries, quote, will refrain from accusing or criticizing each other regarding this issue in the international community, including the United Nations, unquote. This agreement came as a major surprise for the many parties involved. While many of the Japanese activists on the comfort women issue opposed this agreement for its total neglect of the voices of comfort women themselves. The Japanese media and most political parties evaluated this agreement highly. The opinion poll in Japan shows 50 to 60% of Japanese citizens support this decision, and Abe's support rating rose as a result. This agreement, however, has been causing significant division among right-wing revisionists, many of whom were enthusiastic supporters of Abe and worked collaboratively on the comfort women issue in many cases. Mainstream conservatives who were close to the Abe administration are in support of the agreement, while non-mainstream organizations such as Zaitokkai, Nadeshiko Action, Ganbari Nippon Tsukuru Kai, and Happy Science are against it. So this is the actually Happy Science website, just one example. So they're really into the guardian spirit thing. So they argue that the guardian spirits of the former comfort women are saying that, okay, I told lies. And then anti-Japan Korea agreement rallies. So they stage protest actions and rallies against the LDP and the Abe, something that they had never done in the past. Mainstream conservatives have encouraged the more radical right to be calm and support Abe, but it is not working, at least for now. Even some of the more mainstream conservatives seem to be angry, indicating the problem with the agreement is that both countries must refrain from accusing or criticizing each other regarding this issue in the international community, including the United Nations, which they had been using as a major battlefield to recover Japan's reputation. One condition for the 1 billion yen from the Japanese government, according to the media, is said to be the removal of the comfort women statues in front of the Japanese embassy in Seoul. The comfort women and their supporters are extremely angry about this condition, though it might be one of the ways to calm down the heated up right-wingers of the Japanese government. So this is one example of how, ACM, Zaitokkai have used the comfort woman statue, and they are selling it as a mini figure at one of their gatherings, and they are selling it as a mini prostitute kind of statue. With 3,000 yen. So moreover, the Japanese government recently submitted a statement to the United Nations, CEDAW, stating that they could not find any documents indicating the forceful taking away of comfort women by the military and government authorities. And they had no intention of taking compensatory measures in countries not covered by the Asian Women's Fund, such as China. In addition, government officials have been stating in press conferences that they have no intention of coming up with similar agreements with countries other than South Korea. Very soon. With their interest in the United Nations as a battlefield for the past 2 years, Japanese right-wing organizations are mobilizing people to participate in the consideration of the Japan report at the 63rd session of CEDAW in Geneva this month, very soon. Those who are closer to the government, such as scholar Takahashi Shiro, warn their fellow conservatives not to consider their strategy, now to reconsider their strategy and not to be disruptive so as not to destroy the conditions for the agreement. But from what I have been reading in the reports of right-wing gatherings and online articles, angry right-wingers still plan to attend to voice their concerns. Given this new political situation that has arisen since the end of last year, Sankei has not run as many History Wars articles in 2016, though they're still running a series in the history curriculum in California public schools. Whether the History Wars has ended or not, for the Japanese government remains unclear, but for many revisionists, it is far from over. In addition, with the agreement, the revisionist interpretation of the comfort women issue, denying it to be an issue of women's human rights, is even more widespread now. As this overly simplistic version of the collective memory of World War II is presented and spread with the History Wars discourse, the survivors' wars are being challenged, treated less seriously, and neglected. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, that's okay, no problem. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Actually, I haven't visited the museum, so I had no chance to really say in detail what's going on. But in case of Osaka, rather than probably ACM protests, it's more like Mayor Hashimoto and what he wants to do. And he was so into this idea of not having the museum in a kind of masochistic history. So he was really into removing such kind of exhibits and changing museums there. So I think Hashimoto might be, but Hashimoto has been really extensively popular politician among Osaka-based ACM activists as well. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Comfort women usually, in a Japanese context, it's really specifically about the wartime um, women under sexual slavery situation. But in case in South Korea, I heard that there are some other usages too in Korean. But in terms of what Japanese people have been discussing, comfort if ianfu, this term ianfu or comfort women, it really is about wartime thing. Yeah. Yeah. Mm. 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 Yeah. It is clearly euphemism, and I agree with that interpretation. But then this term has been used by, if the survivors use this term or prefer this term, then, but then the fact that Japanese right wingers and the revisionists, especially, and the government as well, are really they are really concerned, seem to be concerned about this term sex slaves or sexual slavery, that actually indicates that they hate this kind of direct description. Yeah. So the feminist side, supporters of comfort women, and those who have been really engaged in supporting of survivors and trying to really solve the comfort women issue for survivors, they really try to say the term sex slaves because of this whole unclear thing, and it's a system of sexual slavery. So that's what they have been arguing. Oh, thank you.
I wanted to highlight a phrase that I found especially helpful, which is breaking taboo using hate speech.
Yeah,
At which point I started thinking about Donald Trump, and I imagine
sure,
everyone else probably did too. So
sure.
that's the best summary of Donald Trump I think I've heard. So I
Yeah,
wanted to
the
say
same
that.
thing. Thank you.
My question is about access and people involved in these sort of connected movements, how they approach you and how they respond to you approaching them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You gave us wonderful examples of how you and other academics in
Mm-hmm.
the U.S. and other places are now targets
Yeah.
to try to convince. But I
Yeah.
was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about the process of doing fieldwork, as much
Ah,
as you feel comfortable in a public
sure,
space.
sure. I basically started the field work on right wingers as a feminist. Initially focused on the right wingers, targeting some feminist causes like gender equality education, gender equality ordinances and laws and things like that. And at that time, it was really kind of clear that I'm their enemy, and then they knew me already. And it's because what those people mainly that I was studying was more in the mainstream conservative organizations and religious right wingers, and those people are more in the kind of with resource people with resources, so they can easily find about me anything on the internet and anything and by other means. So I can't say that I'm not feminist or anything like that. I have to say, okay, I may be your enemy, but I'd like to hear from you. And so, well, of course, some people reject me, but some people are kind of curious about what I can tell them too, right? So that's how it started. With the action conservatives, I try to really go to their demonstrations on those things. And then in the beginning, they really wanted to get attention, so it was not that difficult. And actually, for the action conservatives, I kind of find it easier to be there as women because probably they find women as less threatening. So anyway, but then in the middle of this research, and a journalist had some trouble with the ACM, especially with Zaitokai. And since then, they kind of became a little tougher. So I had to really ask for their permission to do anything, and I have to email them beforehand. I try to be as polite as possible, so that they don't feel threatened or anything. But sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But it's been working fine. On the comfort woman issue, once I started working on a comfort woman issue, it's really the most difficult because gender equality education materials was kind of considered as a thing of the past. So it was more like for the right wingers to talk about what they did in the past. But with this one, it's ongoing, it's changing all the time. So I can't really tell when the situation changes, but they're kind of interested in what I want to say, but then they're more interested in telling what they think. That's right. So it's actually much easier than I thought. And then, well, of course, some people rejected me, but there are quite a few that openly tell what they have been doing. And except for their claims that I don't agree with, most of them are nice people. So if I don't really get into argument or anything, and I can just handle that pretty easily. They're nice people. Yeah.
So first I wanted to thank you.
Oh, thank you.
It was fascinating and
Thank you. Yeah.
to see the extent of this effort.
Mhm.
But I came late, so I may have missed something. But I wanted to just ask you an information question.
Mhm.
What's your view of why this December agreement
Mhm.
between two right-wing administrations? What's your view of why that happened?
Mm.
What was the sort of preparation for that?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I don't have a really clear answer to.
So, I have to confess, I don't follow current events
Yeah.
as closely as I
Mm.
want to, but it came as a
Surprise. Yeah. Yeah, it was a surprise. But then it seems like those people who are close to Abe administration should know, and they should really prepare for it really carefully. And then, yeah, so it was a surprise, but with Abe, really, he wanted to solve this issue in a sense that it won't be the biggest obstacle, and it actually helps. Well, there's all the media reports saying that United States put pressure onto two governments. So possibly that's well with the United States involvement, then sure, and it helps with his ultimate goal of constitutional reform. If he can solve all those kind of history stuff, then it's gonna be helpful. He can get more support. Yeah.
Recently, I was told that Korean
Mhm.
professor,
Mhm.
female professor, wrote a book on this subject
Mhm.
in Japanese.
Yeah.
She studied in Waseda.
Mhm.
Do you have a comment on this book?
So Pakyuha. That's a huge subject, so I have to probably spend another lecture on this topic. It's my kind of, I read the book, I participated in a study group of the book, and then I really don't evaluate the book highly. I don't think that book stands really the examination of historians really. It's then that book is not by professional historian, and she is a literary scholar. So, but one thing is that she, I mean, that has been really divisive among the Japanese liberal leftist scholars, activists, everybody. So, and many people in Japan have been speaking that, well, she writes the book, and well, of course, anybody can write any kind of books, maybe, but how the book has been received by the Japanese media, Japanese liberal circle, might be even more problem. And so I'm not the professional historian, so I can't really evaluate the book as a professional historian. But to me, there are so many issues, and I did the study group with historians on comfort women issue, so I could totally see how they can be critical of that book. Yes.
Well, you have described two sides of the story. And what do you think about the real fact? What really happened? Was the Korean woman or Chinese woman really forced to do that? I would really like to hear about your position. Related to that, there is the argument between the two countries.
Mhm.
There is anti-movement in that.
Mhm.
So what would you like to suggest as a solution? Because it's not going to, the agreement is not going to solve anything.
Right.
So
Right.
what would be the right way to go?
Right. So, yeah, first, the Japanese government has been claiming that there was no evidence for comfort women to be forced or forcibly recruited. But then the problem with the Japanese government is that they haven't really admitted any of the documents found. They haven't recognized any of the documents found since the Kono statement. So there are so many other documents that scholars found, but the government doesn't recognize them. So those documents should be recognized first and then examined first in order to make that kind of judgments. And then also, of course, the comfort women issue tends to be framed as an issue between Japan and Korea, South Korea only, but the victims exist everywhere in Asia. And so in this kind of Korea versus Japan discussion, or sometimes China might be, but in that discussion, there are many other victims kind of falling out of this whole discussion. So I think that's really kind of bad. And then, of course, for example, Dutch women, it's admitted, it's really recognized that they were forcibly recruited, totally. And so there are all those situations that women were, then even though women were tricked to be recruited, it doesn't change the nature of the system of sexual slavery at all, to me. Yes. Thank you.
You must be so brave.
Hmm?
Currently,
Uh-huh. Oh, wow, great.
I hope that you don't get any writing book. How is the relationship with country you met with the
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, really, really? Hmm. Great, great. Yeah, yeah. What happened to him with the lawsuit was really disappointing. But so yeah, I try to keep close relation with the supporting side of comfort women as well, and because I do both sides are my research kind of subjects in a sense. So I try to really see the what's going on entirely, really. So I need to go to, and then right wingers and conservatives, their internal divisions as well. So I have to go to various sides of the right wingers as well. And so, yeah. And so it's did I answer your question? And then in terms of the attacks, yeah, of course, there are some things, bad things about me on the internet. Yeah, of course. So I'm usually written as the radical leftist, feminist, whatever. All those kind of adjectives continue on. So and then yeah, my photo sometimes is picked up and posted on the internet. And then some kind of, and my friend who has been working on the comfort women issue also has been attacked, and they tend to really attack things like lesbian or feminist or something, and that could be used as really the method, like the means of attacking somebody harshly on the internet.
I remember
Uh-huh.
that Chan,
Uh-huh. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Uh-huh.
he was threatened so much.
Right,
Suicide.
right. Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, to me, being in, usually I'm in Montana, very isolated location. So I don't have to worry anything about the Japanese right-wingers coming to me, really. So that's kind of a lucky situation. But if I'm in, for example, if I'm in Los Angeles, that could be a different story. So I heard that some UCLA faculty member who has been committed to the comfort women issue received some threats too. So, yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. Sure. Hmm. Well, yeah, feminists use that argument too. Feminist leftist scholars, and they all make comparison between Germany and Japan, and then how Japan has really not been addressing the comfort women issue in anything, public education, anything. And comfort women themselves, survivors themselves, also ask Japan to include education in schools or public education, so that memories and records and the history can be communicated to the later generation, younger generation. But right wingers, they depends on the right wingers, kind of right wingers, more xenophobic, kind of racist side of right wingers embrace Nazism, so it doesn't really matter. And then for more kind of mainstream type of conservative people, and they hate Japan to be mixed up with Nazi Germany, in terms of Nazi, not necessarily Germany. So Japan, for them, Japan did a good thing. Japan liberated Asia from other Western nations. And Japan helped comfort women to have their business safely or something. Japan did a good thing is their core argument.
I think your point about my lecture is that in Nazi Germany, the past was fought.
Yeah. Right.
Any other questions?
Let's see.
Is it from like who made? Could I ask you a question again? Yeah.
I can rephrase the question. Why are the Koreans so invested in Hong Kong
Ah.
as opposed to other Asian
Other Asian countries. I see. Well, other countries. In terms of activism, in terms of supporters, they are all invested. But what the government has been pushing for, and I'm not a specialist on South Korean politics, so I can't really speak for the Korean government, but at least I can speak on activism side out a little bit. But they have been really trying really hard to persuade the government to do something, because the Japanese government admitting the system, and also Japanese government paying some reparation kind of thing is necessary to regain their honor for the survivors. So, in the Korea side, it's really complicated, and then there are multiple organizations going on. But other countries, with all the kind of difficulties in terms of political kind of negotiation and what kind of relationship that the government wants to establish with Japan, they may not be pushing that hard on the issue. But with the South Korea-Japan agreement reached, there are some countries which showed interest in the similar agreement or similar thing that Japan said they are not interested, but some other governments might be, and Taiwan, for example, might be interested in that.
Is there any record how many comfort women were there at the time, and then the population of the comfort women by the nation? And I wonder if South Korea.
We had somebody else actually
Oh, I'm
before
sorry.
you don't mind. Yes. And then we'll have to wrap it up. Yeah, after your question.
One question. Do you have the fact of how many women Number two is, how many of our children, like at that time, they know that they're going to
Mm-hmm.
Another thing I'd like to say is, I'm from Taiwan, and I just heard last week, not last month,
Mhm.
my husband surviving company.
Yeah. Well, but still, with Kung Fu women passing away, then they can still. But yeah, sure. Anyway, so the numbers has been always kind of source of controversy between the Japanese right wing and then other people, and there are multiple theories on the numbers, and then also like how many are forced, how many are not forced. It's unclear. Of course, there's really, but then historians try to really dig out any documents that could indicate. So even among historians, there are multiple theories, there are multiple things going on. So I can't say, okay, 20,000 the number of women were forced, and then the other number of women were actually tricked and things like that. But the numbers, I don't think number will change any essential nature of the system of sexual slavery by the Japanese military.
Thank you very much. I think we need to wrap up, but you're welcome to nail down Professor Yamaguchi after her talk. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.